Thanks for reading thestartupfoundry.com. You're watching I pitched 200 venture capitalists in 10 months before I closed the round. If you would like to advertise with the Startup Foundry, get in touch with me at paul@thestartupfoundry.com. Thanks and enjoy the show. Hi everyone, I'm Paul Hans from the Startup Foundry. Today we have Sanjay Parekh from Startup Riot. So Sanjay, will you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all. But I'm Sanjay. As Paul just mentioned, I'm with Startup Riot. But also previously before that, I started up a internet technology company back in '99, which we sold in 2007. Raised $12 million for that company. A lot of people know the technology that I created, even though they don't know the company behind it. But we did IP-based location. So all the location-based ads you get, your bank being protected by it based on where you're located.
In your previous venture, when you raised $12 million, raising money, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it was painful. So when I raised money, the $10.5 million that we raised in venture, and it's funny that you asked this because, well, it was $12 million total. It was $1.5 million in angel and $10.5 million in venture. So okay. The number's right. And it's funny that you asked this because just a couple of days ago, I was talking about this on Quora. There was a question that came up about how many VCs does it take to close a round. And so I pitched to over 200 VCs in 10 months to close my round of funding. And there's a story behind that, which maybe is not pertinent to this question, but my slides and kind of my pitch changed pretty dramatically after about the first 10 to 15 pitches. And that was really kind of the number of pitches that I needed to understand what I was pitching. And pitch in such a way that people got it and understood. Because for the first couple, you hear the same questions over and over again. And if you're paying attention, you realize that you're clearly not explaining this important facet of the business. So after about 15 or so pitches, my pitch was pretty solid. And when you're going to 200 pitches, you know, that's kind of important to be able to do that. But you know, there were tweaks along the way, obviously, and got different questions. But after about 15 pitches or so, there were really no questions I hadn't heard. And so I was prepared for pretty much anything. So for somebody that's raising money, I think it's very important to know that this thing can take a while. And if you're going to commit to raising money, you've got to really commit. It's a huge aberration when you hear about these people that raise $41 million before they launch, or, you know, they raise $1 bajillion on their first meeting, you know, idea on a napkin. That doesn't happen to most of us. Most of us have to go out there and keep talking and keep pitching and keep presenting to eventually hit the right investor that also not only understands what you're trying to do, but you understand the investor and you're comfortable with the investor being a part of your venture. So, you know, I think first and foremost, you've got to be just really willing to commit to that, as well as paying attention to what people are telling you. Because a lot of times when they tell you no, you've got to understand why they told you no. Because that's the important information that will make your pitch better for the next time around.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a side note, but I'm curious. Like, can you give us a 2-minute story or version of the story of you pitching 200 investors?
Yeah, so I'll give you the background of the story as to why it was 200. So first of all, so we started in about October of 2000, and we closed around in July of 2001. And it's an important time frame too, because if you remember, then a few months after that was 9/11, and at least here in Atlanta, nobody really got funded for probably 8 or 9 months after 9/11. So in terms of that, we were very, very fortunate. But the backstory is that we had actually gotten to about January or February of 2001, and it had 2 term sheets. And we signed one of those 2 term sheets, and we started going down due diligence. About a month and a half into due diligence, we got a call from the partners of this firm. And I'm not going to mention them publicly because they're still around. But and I have no issue with the folks at this firm, but they called us and told us that they didn't have any money to invest. So they hadn't found anything wrong with us, but they had no money to invest. That's a horrible call to get. The problem being is that all the other term sheets and all the other VCs that you've talked to up until that point, they know that you're off the market. And so once you're off the market, if you go back and tell them, oh, no, that deal didn't get done, their assumption is that there was something wrong with you. There was some fraud, or there's some problem with the technology. Right. There's some issue there. And they won't touch you with a 10-foot stick. So we got lucky in terms of when that happened. It sucked that it happened, but one of the partners on that deal was Siemens Venture Capital, and they stuck with us. And finally, they were in the round that actually funded us. But they were the ones that were able to go back to these other VCs and tell them, no, there's nothing wrong with them. It was just that other firm, they ran out of money. So we started up the process again, and very fortunately, we ended up getting, I think it was 7 firms total. And we got that $10.5 million. We got lucky, and in the end, it ended up being the best for us. We got AOL Time Warner Ventures as an investor as well. They weren't in on that first term sheet. So that's kind of how that whole thing happened. There's a lot of other random stories that I have to tell, obviously, from pitching to 200 VCs. The VCs that were horrible, and the VCs that I still to this day that didn't invest in us, but I still love, and I would take their money, in a heartbeat. I've got that whole range, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, you kept saying, oh yeah, I got lucky, but I mean, you were working there, 200 VCs pitches in a year. Like, that's not just lucky, like that's hard work too.
Yeah, it is absolutely hard work. And the thing I think that kept driving us as a founding team, when we first heard that the original term sheet was getting pulled, is that we had probably at that point about 10 or 12 employees. And these are people that were all relying on us to pay their salaries so they could pay their mortgages so they don't lose their houses and all those things. And a lot of people don't talk about kind of those lows in entrepreneurship, but there's lows. I mean, there's really, really bad times. And then there's really, really great highs. And they come, and it's like you're bipolar or something. You go to the two extremes. It doesn't ever feel like you're anywhere in the middle like normal people. It's those two extremes. Either you got the deal or you didn't get the deal, or term sheet gets pulled, or you got the funding, or whatever. And so I think it was really that kept driving us, rather than saying, well, we're out of money, we're going to quit and hang this up, we'll just go get jobs. Because the 3 of us as co-founders could do that, but what about the 10 or 12 people that relied on us and had kind of bought into our vision and come over and quit their jobs and gone full-time on the startup? So we felt like we had a responsibility to those folks to keep pushing through.